All right, Shabbat Shalom to everyone, and welcome to the river. And those who are joining us live here at River Branch, a big welcome to you, wherever you are in the world. And for those that will watch this by video, Shabbat Shalom to you, and welcome to the river. Okay, we are continuing our journey in Shalom in the home. And today we'll look at the Torah of your home. And so what does this mean for us? So we've kind of gone through, we looked at part one in this series, and as we're looking at these things, there's a number of things to consider. And so I always sort of start off with a quote here, and I've got an easy existence. And this is a quote by Norman Vincent Peale, and he was sort of a Protestant clergyman and known for popularizing the concept of positive thinking and all this sort of thing and the power of positive thinking. And this kind of made its way into the Christian church. And as I do with these quotes, sometimes it's sort of, they're just there for us to think about. And he's saying here the life of inner peace being harmonious and without stress is the easiest type of existence. And although I understand where he's trying to come from, this is one of those quotes where I'm going to challenge us a little bit and say, is this really about the easiest type of existence? Is this really what the Father is setting out for us? Is Shalom about an easy existence, or is Shalom something greater than that and is with us regardless of our circumstance? And so, although we should be positive and try to look at things in life in a way where we can move things forward, and we don't want to be living in this negative space and constantly everything is wrong or dark in our lives. At the same time, I'm not sure if the goal of inner shalom, if we understand the true meaning of shalom, is actually about an easiest type of existence. I'm not sure that's what the time domain is about, what we really see in scripture, what the Father is saying. Is this time domain, is our existence having this human experience that the Father's given us about an easy type of existence? And I'm not sure that that's really what we read in his word and what we see. We're going to go through various things in our lives, and there'll be the challenges, there'll be the crushings of our lives, there'll be the joy, there'll be the blessings, there'll be these things. But I'm not sure that the goal is the easiest type of existence. And so when this kind of thinking came into the body and into, the Christian side of the river, I think that it led to seeking happiness, not actually shalom, as we see in scripture. And so the distinction, I don't believe, is actually being made in the quote. And so although we want to be positive and we don't want to be thinking negatively all the time about things in our lives, we need to sort of understand that true shalom isn't necessarily about giving us an easy existence, especially when we're, traversing the struggles and challenges of our lives. And so it's just one of those things where I'm questioning that if we understand the true meaning of shalom, is that what it is about? The definition of chaos, and we looked at this last in part one of the series, where we looked at the tohu and in the Hebrew, and mentioned in the beginning of Genesis the tohu and then the vohu, this void. There's a sense of understanding that chaos isn't just a bunch of stuff happening out of our control, that this is actually a place that leads us to emptiness, to nothingness, to a place of almost here in the Hebrew, the wasteland, the wilderness, and the focus of vanity, of being on self. And what that can do is bring us to a place where we're actually experiencing a form of depression. The contrary to that, or the opposite of that, is shalom. And in the Hebrew there, we see that this is based around completeness, soundness, welfare, safety, prosperity, tranquility, contentment, the quality of our human relationships, our covenant relationship with Elohim, no more conflict, wars. And of course, the root of this being the actual covenant of shalom itself and the giver of that, and to live in shalom and to live in this place of completeness and soundness. And so when we're in the place of tohu, when we're in the place of the void of our lives, this wilderness of our lives, this thing that gives us this vast emptiness and these feelings as we're trying to cope with the world around us, shalom is actually doing the opposite, and it is going to bring us to a place of understanding him at the covenant level. And so shalom is directly tied to this, and we'll speak a little bit more about this today. But really, in the end, it's relating, and there's interesting when you look at the root of the Hebrew, how this can actually relate to the Father's great plan of redemption and Messiah himself, and going to the ancient Tav for the payment and the recompense or the reward to get us to this place. And so it's very interesting when we consider sort of the true understanding of chaos and the true understanding of shalom, and how the two, how one is truly the light is causing the other one to not be there. So the state of chaos in Bereshit, which we mentioned in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth, and talks about the formless and the desolation. And there's something that the Father took us through. He experienced, he understood. And as the Spirit is hovering over this, there's this tohu, this reality that had come about from something that has happened, and something that occurred outside the time domain. And we're not getting into that in the series today. But the darkness mentioned there, the hasach, this obscurity, but it also relates to this secret place. So there's a reason, there's something that the Father is doing with all of this. And this is captured in Bereshit in Genesis, right at the beginning of Torah. And so he starts in this place of tohu, or void and desolation. So very interesting is the Father experienced this in his, from his perspective at a level that perhaps is incomprehensible for us to understand at its deepest levels. But we do get a glimpse of these things as we experience this thing we called life. So the chaos, this formless confusion, reality, emptiness, nothingness, wasteland, wilderness, and this vanity aspect, this focus on self. So the chaos of our lives. And then so we bring this in to all that we experience here. And of course, this comes down to this depression, this hopelessness, this feeling of loneliness, restlessness. We can all experience this place where we go to a place where we're experiencing what are modern symptoms of depression. And so, I've got here, what hope does unbelieving Rome or other religions have if the root of chaos is spiritual seduction and deception? So if we actually get our spirituality going into these places that are not truly of him, is it possible that we are actually, no matter how much we try to think positively about things, what we're actually experiencing is spiritual deception that's occurred in our lives? And this is, of course, leading us down paths and unwise decisions, choices, not implementing his ways, his instructions. And so what happens is that no amount of positive thinking overcomes not walking in his ways. And so Rome is experiencing this right now on a big scale. And so they're trying to plug the holes in the boat and everything they're going. And no matter how much they're trying to think just positive about things, things are going wrong. And so we're seeing this unfold, particularly over the Western world at this time. And so as we look at this, one of the things the Father's doing is the root of chaos, this void, this desolation, these things, is ultimately we have spiritually gone off path. We are actually not connected with the Creator and his ways. And so this is a very interesting position, that a lot of what we might be seeing in the Western leg, in this modern depression, if you will, and in this stuff that's engulfing the world at this time, at the root of this, we were suggesting in part one, was actually is spiritually connected to not following in his ways and to not understanding them and having that play out in our lives. And of course, we see in Psalm 42:5 there, David speaks about, his soul being in this place temporarily. And his solution to this, to dealing with this, is turning to his hope in Elohim and praising him for his salvation as a part of his great plan of redemption. And so one of the things that we were tying in part one is the direct antidote to depression is actually repentance, or teshuvah, being in a place of teshuv, to turn to him and his ways, that this is the actual. So depression and the solution to depression is not found in a bottle of pills. It's actually found in our repentance to him, to dealing with the tohu, or the chaos of our lives. So we looked at how do we get rid of these poisonous and bitter roots. And so, of course, we had to revisit something that is an action, is a choice. You notice putting an axe to something, that this act, it's actually a very intent. The intent is there to choose to put an axe to the things that are potentially causing a place of shalom to not be in our lives, with friends, with family, with spouse, with children, all of these sorts of things that we need to learn. As we turn to Yah, then we turn to each other. And as we turn to each other, there's ways to do this. And of course, this is laid out in Matthew and how it relates to the Torah. And what Matthew was relating there is that it starts with the essence of communication and forgiveness and turning one to another, and to be able to do this, not to let it lie. And so the emphasis was on the offended, first and foremost in these instructions. And then the offender is then dealing with what's been brought to them. And as you live this process of dealing with putting an axe to these roots of chaos, that we often find out that just because we were offended, it doesn't mean that actually the other party was guilty. And so often we can find that out as we journey this through, that, wait a minute, my offense maybe didn't have merit, or didn't have understanding, or needed to understand or know things more. And as we do this, as we put the axe to these roots, we find this place or this chance for healing, for connection, for shalom to come back in, and to start to deal with the root of the chaos that might come out of disconnected relationships. And so this is a big thing when it comes to the human experience, because if we're experiencing conflict and disconnection in our human relationships, this can often bring or be the source of chaos in our lives, or tohu. And so we feel this place. And so to deal with it, we need to take that forward and be in a place of repentance to the Father and then to each other. And so the Matthew 18 axes I've got here is a conscious choice for us to do so, to not hang on to these things, so that unforgiveness and the bitterness and the roots that can develop in our lives don't take hold and then affect every aspect of our lives. So shalom in the home. So last week, that foundational aspect, and this week, we're just going to look at a practical aspect. So this is more about, now that we understand the foundation, some of the source, the underlying principles behind this. What is some practical ways that we are to look at this if we're to consider the Father's patterns? And so we just look at the practical here, and then next week in part 3, sort of the hidden matters that are around this, and how it plays out. All of it to be a part of bringing shalom into the home. So what is the Torah? So what is going on here? What is this aspect we've got in this part of the teaching? We're looking at the Torah of the home. And so if we were to look at the Torah and what we refer to the Torah in general, the word Torah literally means instruction. So this is direct reference often to the first 5 books of the Bible, which was penned by Moshe on the instructions of our Elohim, to give a set of a written account, an understanding, and also what's included in that, of course, is the covenant and then the instructions, which are more detailed out in Leviticus. And so he's done something in an interesting way where he's establishing the house of Israel, and he's establishing it with, first and foremost, the covenant and then the instructions of how to live sort of in his house around that. And so if we're to think about these principles in its larger or in its greater way of how Elohim has done it, can this pattern have meaning and relate to our lives in a practical sense? And so I'm just going to start off here with Corinthians in 2 Corinthians 6:14 and what Paul is trying to say here, and in what is happening with the early Kahal, or the early church at Corinth, whereas they were experiencing all sorts of things, trying to grapple with who is the living Elohim, what are his ways, how does this play out practically? And of course, he's dealing with all of this in a big way when we actually go in and we read 1st and 2nd Corinthians and his visits to the early Kahal in Corinth, and just some of the challenges that they were having, and nothing new under the sun. We all have these challenges too. And so we're having to work through the very same things. It might be in a modern context, but the very same things that they did almost 2,000 years ago. So referring to this position and the challenges that come with relationships of being a part of our own households and how that spreads out to the body. And so it says here, do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. For what partnership has righteousness? So righteousness we know is established in his Torah that was given to us, with Torahlessness. So often our English translations there. So it says, what partnership has righteousness have with Torahlessness? Well, it can't. They're the opposite of each other. Or what fellowship has light with darkness? So without his righteousness, without an understanding of his ways, to be Torahless in our own lives means that we are going to try and be having fellowship with darkness. But what if this has come in to the actual essence of our own homes? What if we're actually experiencing unequally yoked relationships that are occurring at the marital level, at the spousal level, with our children, with our friends, our close family, these sorts of things? And so there's this sort of real place where it opens the door that if this exists, I believe that why Paul's mentioning this is because it opens the door to us experiencing chaos or tohu in our lives. So being equally yoked is a very, very important establishment. If you think of what the Father did with establishing the house of Israel in Sinai, what he was doing was, I've brought you all out. You're all over the place. I'm going to bring you into a place of being equally yoked. And so he's going to, with each other and with him, and how this is going to look as he establishes his house. So that pattern is very interesting for us to consider as it plays out in each of our own personal lives. So in his establishment of the house of Israel, of course, we know the 10, as we understand, is the 10 commandments or the 10 matters. And this is listed in Exodus in chapter 20, where he's writing down this position that we're going to get to, this covenant. I want you to understand something as an absolute foundational position. So as a part of Torah, there is the actual covenant. And it's quite interesting, some things here when you look at this. There is an emphasis given on two things in here, which are very interesting as it relates to him. And he's establishing the Torah of his house. He says, you shall have no other Elohim before me. Notice that this is directly related again to spiritual adultery. And so the very prominence he's given right up front is, if your spirituality is out of whack, we're going to be in trouble here. First and foremost, he is saying, I am Elohim, and I am establishing this house. And he's making this point right from the beginning. And it's expanded upon when we see in the Torah and Exodus this component. And he goes through it. And the other one is keep the Sabbath set apart. And so this is another thing that is actually expanded upon more within the giving of this, as we see the account in the Torah and in Exodus. And so, what's going on here? Why is at the heart of this to do with the outcome or the rest in Him on His Sabbath? And the emphasis is starting off again with what we looked at in part one, this connection to spiritual seduction and deception. In Exodus 24:6, it says, "You shall not make for yourself a carved image." In the Hebrew there, this is the pasal, and this is idol image. Okay, so we shouldn't be doing this. And again, we've seen this happen a lot in trying to give these likenesses and these images. You see these carved statues that are sitting in all the mystery ancient religions, and they're worshiping all of these things. And the time that Yeshua was standing there in front of the disciples in Caesarea, and he's standing in front of all these carved images and saying, "Look, you're trying to make this essence of God or Elohim in your own image, and so we try and carve it out." And yet he's actually saying here, do not do this. And in Christianity, we've made pictures of Yeshua and putting this all forth. And should we actually be doing this? And why? Is it just that he's offended because somebody's trying to make carved images to relate somehow to a higher spirituality? He just doesn't like this. Or is there something deeper here that's going on? That when we do this, we're going to start to attach our own interpretations, our own traditions, our own concepts of this. And of course, we see this has happened with not just on the Christian and Judeo sides, in the sense that they have tried to stay away from this for the most part as much as they can. But the whole religious experience on the world at large, it says, "You shall not bow down to them," okay, or repent or serve them. And to do this. Now, the reason for this is that if we attach our image of our creator to these things, then we are going to essentially start to serve or bow down to our image of them. We're not turned to him, we're turned to our view or our image of him. He says, "I am Yah, your Elohim," a jealous Elohim. In other words, he's saying, hey, don't go here, I want you to come to me. Now, if he's speaking about this, it's an interesting way. He's jealous for this. Sort of like a bridegroom would be jealous for his bride to turn to him and not to others. Visiting the iniquity of the fathers, or the transgressions of the father who have entertained this, and the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me. So they've learned to love their image of him, and they've hated him. The root of this, the pasal, is simply to cut, to hew, or to quarry out. So if you think about this from a mind perspective, are we quarrying out, are we hewing our own image of him? And can we actually do this when it comes to the greater spirituality? Of course, we've got all of history to show us this is exactly what we've done, and it's exactly what we've been guilty of. And in fact, the 10 scattered tribes of Israel were removed as a part of the judgment because they were entertaining this, of which he gave so much emphasis on. But showing steadfast love to the thousands who love me and keep my commandments. So it's very interesting. So he expands on this in greater detail in the Exodus account, and gives right up front certain things that come with, I am Elohim, and now I don't want you doing this. You need to actually, essentially what he's saying is, you need to know who I am. Who am I really? Not who you think I am, not who you want me to be. And of course, many of us on our spiritual journeys have learned this, perhaps the hard way. The other one he expands on is the Sabbath, this time of rest, and this place of resting in him. And what's interesting is the Sabbath being directly connected, I believe, to his shalom, what he has done to have us to rest, to be able to put aside and to think about the Father and his ways, and to rest physically, to rest mentally, emotionally, to not bring in all of this stuff that we sometimes do on the Sabbath, and is why we are to guard this Sabbath, because it is a big part, I believe, of the Shalom journey. So getting the spirituality right, and then actually understanding that we are to put this time. It says, remember the sixth day to keep it set apart. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to Yah, your Elohim, and on it you shall not do any work. You or your son or your daughter or your male servant or your female servant, livestock, and the sojourners within your gates. In other words, it's saying, hey, put it all aside right now. This is not a time to be doing work, and in particular, seval work, paid work, that sort of thing. So what is it that we are doing to the Sabbath? Are we allowing this position where we have clearly down-tooled and we have actually given this time for the Father and each other to rest in Him? And is this directly connected to His Shalom? For in 6 days Yah made heaven and earth and the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore Yah blessed the Sabbath and made it set apart. This connection and what he is doing is he's teaching us a principle here that we need. And many of you will know that until you look deeper at your faith or came into the faith at a deeper level, you will know that the Sabbath has been a large part of reestablishing his shalom in your life, to be able to take this time. And he's directly connecting this in an emphasis to say, okay, if you get me right, if you get the right Elohim here, you're not going about doing all this other stuff. Now you're going to be able to focus on the right Elohim through all of this. And so the first 4 components of his covenant, as he gave in the Torah, is focused on him and him alone, and then resting in him and in him alone and with each other. And this bridges to the next 6th part of the covenant, which is actually our instructions. And of course, Yeshua summed this up in his great answer to the Pharisees at the time when he was being challenged. And he summed them up in the 2 parts, the Elohim part and then in the man part. So we've got this interesting precedence and pattern being set down by Elohim for the whole house of Israel. Here's the question that I have you ask yourselves now in giving all of this, because if the Father knows this in the house and the creation as it relates to him, can we make each other in our own image? Is that possible? Because if we can, and apparently we can do this to Elohim, I'd suggest to you that it's possible we can do this to each other. And so we see this greater picture trying to teach us something for the shadow picture or the human experience. And of course, if we make each other or one another in our own image, is it possible that this could cause a disruption to our human relationships, to our shalom with one another, our ability to have a home that has actually a shalom? And I'd suggest to you that the reason why that emphasis was given in the covenant as a part of the Torah, as a part of the way he does things, is he's trying to teach us a practical understanding and establishment in the shadow picture of our test to employ in our lives, to take seriously that if this is my way with you, I want you to take that pattern and understand why I've done it this way so that it will help you with each other. Because all of this is going to steer us away from the tohu or the chaos of our lives. Is it that big? I've got here a poem that was written by Brother Brad Saunders in the community. And he wrote this to me, and we'd had quite an interesting discussion and things like that. And he had gone away, as he does, and penned this poem. And I'm going to just read it to you because as a part of this discussion, we were discussing some of the things that we're looking at today. He went away and wrote this and sent it to me. And I just loved it so much that he gave permission to share it with you all. But I just want to show you what sort of the essence of this is. So the AI bride, in all of Yah's creation, which he made, and it was good. He could have arranged all the outcomes to turn out just as we think it should. But this time domain was created. So to the measure our character here, to discover what is in our hearts, to display what we truly hold dear. Yah certainly could have programmed us, a companion built for his ends, but Yah doesn't want an AI bride with no heart nor the love he intends. So here we have been placed on this planet we call Earth, so he may choose his one true love to adorn her with his great worth. If a bride does hate her husband and desires to find someone new, that is not a bride fit for any groom. Not for Yah, whose completeness is true. For we all have been formed from the dust. What was breathed into us is Yah's life. We should expect to see Yah's character be displayed in one called his wife. Behold, the bridegroom comes. Wake up, for your lamps must you trim, filled with oil that comes from your crushing as you prepare to go meet with him. So we rejoice in all our sufferings, for by them our character builds, not at all like an AI bride that is heartless and void of free will. Wow. When I read that, it summed up something. If we were to make a bride in our image, so think of this now in the connection of the human experience between spouse or relationship, friends, family, all this. If we make up others in our own image, will we make them or have them conform? And essentially what we're looking for is an AI version of what we want, not what they are, who they are. Do we really get to know one another, the one we are going to take to the altar? This is a big one, and I deal with this all the time when we're looking at marriage counseling and things like this. Or is it just emotionally driven? Is it driven by our image of someone? Is it driven by our want to not be lonely, to be happy, to seek, and fulfill our dreams, our goals, whatever it might be, our desire to have children, our desire to, to experience whatever we might have as our concept of marriage. But then did we bring that to the actual person? Are we trying to conform them, program them to be what we want them to be? What was our betrothal really all about? Was it really all about the other person? Was it really all about getting to know them? Or was it about ourselves? Was it about self? So many times, and we'll talk about this some more from the practical level, that often when we're establishing, whether it be at the marriage covenant level, whether it be at the friendship level, whether it be with our children, we are trying to conform people potentially in our own image. And the fruit of this is going to be continual chaos in our lives, continually let down, continually to face this. Do we know to embrace and respect the gender design as a part of all of this? Do we wish to understand what the Creator has designed for us to know? Or do we just want our husband to be just like me, or my wife to be just like me, or the daughter to be like the son, or the son like the daughter? Like, what is it that we're doing here? Are we embracing the design, essentially, as we look at this? Does making each other in our own image cause the loss of shalom in our lives? Is it possible that when people keep failing to our image of them, our spouse, our children, everything else, is it possible that this is actually going to bring tahu into our very existence? Are we really equally yoked? And how would you establish that if not how the pattern of the Father has given us in Torah? with his covenant, and then with his instructions that underlie everything that will ultimately feed into the goal of Torah, this great covenant with us. And so when we enter into the relationships with each other, are we considering this equally yoked position? Are we really equally yoked? Have given ourselves the chance to know and to love? Is it possible that when we do this, we don't give ourselves a chance to really know and then before be able to love someone else? Could this go to every aspect of our lives? Do we even think that this could happen with our children? Could it happen at the spousal level? Can it happen with our friends? Can it happen with our fellowship in the wider body? Do we just continue to force one another to conform to our image? And if they don't, whatever that is, because, well, I see it this way, I do things this way, this is how you should do it, you not doing this. If we live in this space, is it possible that as we try to have another conform, that we will not learn to know them? And therefore, if you don't know another person in your life, can you actually love them? Is that possible? Do you really believe that not knowing someone still allows you to love someone? And so this is an interesting thing to consider. Is it possible the very thing preventing you from having what we desire to know and to love someone could be our own image is not being conformed to, and we are demanding something that is actually creating the tahu in that relationship in our lives, bringing that in? And could this affect us in the home? Can this place, if we do this, if we are all making each other in our own image, can this really bring shalom into our home? I'd suggest to you the Father has established a pattern here. He's established a way of doing something because I think he knows something. I think he wants us to know him so that we can love him. And if we learn to love him as a house, we might actually start to experience something. And that might be his shalom. So the what is there as a pattern, and the why, the weightier matter. The why of Torah, so he can have an AI house of Israel? Is this why he's done it? Why did we go through all of this then? Could he not have just programmed us to just be obedient and always obedient, not stuck the adversary in the garden, not put this position of being able to choose and eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Couldn't he have just programmed us? And he got exactly what he wanted, that we would have this programming. Nobody was ever disobedient, no capacity to be exactly everything that he wanted, and everybody's programmed to, do the Torah and all these sorts of things. Is because if that's the case, and we know all things are possible with Elohim, we really have to ask ourselves why he didn't go that route. And if he didn't go that route, maybe we should ask ourselves, why are we going that route in our human shadow picture, our human relationships, as we experience the time domain? Why the Torah? Not just the what. Why the Torah? It defines sin. It defines missing the mark. As we get to know him, we understand he's established his righteousness in it. It exposes the fact that we fail against this. This is all a part of going, this is who I am. This is what I want you to do. And you're going to fail, by the way. So he's gone through this great place of allowing this to play out in a certain way. Establishes his righteous judgment. Yes, it does these things. Provides instruction and guidance for the time domain and the test of life. Yes, it does all of these things. He's given all of these things. But then there's these hidden matters that are contained within the why of Torah. There's something that he is achieving here. From the chaos, the tohu at the beginning of Bereshit, that is going to finish in a place of shalom. And he's not doing it the AI bride way. In Devarim here in Deuteronomy 30, 1 to 2, it says, and when all things come upon you. So he's gone through and great things here in the Torah and in Deuteronomy here about the blessings and the curses. And it's quite interesting here. When all things come upon you, the blessings and the curse, not if, when they do. So the assumption here is you're not going to get it perfect. So you're going to experience, because he changes not, his ways are, his standard of righteousness, all of these things do not change. So when you experience the blessing and the curse, which I've set before you, when you do, and you call them to mind, and this is going to be now this whole thing of what's going on in our mind among all the nations where Yah your Elohim has driven you. So there's been this righteous judgment. There's been this driving out of the scattered house of Israel to the four corners of the earth. And that includes all 12 tribes now. So when we look at the Torah in this sense, all of us have been driven out among the nations, and we're experiencing the blessings of the curse within this. But there's a reason he's done this. And look at this, and return or repent to Yah your Elohim, you and your children, and obey his voice in all that I command you today with all your heart. First and foremost, this is a heart journey. It is a heart matter ultimately, and with all your nefesh, to be written on the heart of our very existence. At the heart of Elohim's plan, and the intent is forgiveness and mercy with the goal of shalom. And it is recorded in the Torah for us if we have eyes to see and ears to hear. Goes on. Then Yah your Elohim will restore your fortune and have mercy on you. And he will gather you again from all the peoples where Yah your Elohim has scattered you. So the blessings and the curses and the righteous judgment that accompanies that isn't the goal. The goal wasn't just to judge us righteously. The goal is restoration, and repentance is restoration. And in the Matthew 18 Acts, this is one of the greatest ways to deal with the tahu of our lives, to put an axe to these things, to allow the chance of restoration. And so the Moedim themselves, what we are to consider every year when we honor his appointed times, when we come together for the Sabbath, the weekly appointed time, we are to consider the reason for this is all based on turning to him for the purpose of restoration with him, and to have that factor in our whole lives. And if the goal is shalom for him, then the shadow picture in our own lives is hugely important. Can we take these principles of Elohim, these greater waitings for the house of Israel, and can we bring it into the home? In Matthew 11, 25, 27, it says this, at the time Yeshua declared, I thank you, Father. I thank you, Father, for Yah of heaven and earth, that you have hidden these things from the wise and understanding and revealed them to the little children. Who are the little children? We are. So the so-called wise, the so-called ones that understand all of this, something's been hidden from them. Is it possible they've headed down this AI directive, making him in their own image, therefore forcing everyone in their own images and each other? Or is there something here that is going to be revealed to the little children? Yes, Father, for such was your gracious will. It's very clear. Such was your favored will. All things have been handed over to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father. So there's a level, there's an intimacy there that he's pointing out between the Father and the Son at this stage. There's a level of shalom that is being experienced. And then he goes on, and no one knows the Father except the Son. And anyone to whom, look at this, the Son chooses to reveal him. Wow. And this is why he says, no one shall come unto the Father but through me. There's a literal essence here of shuv, repentance, restoration, turning to him at the heart of this. And again, the way that the master has laid this out, the hidden there, the krypto, to hide, to conceal, to escape notice of. He's bringing this forth now to the children. And the reason why he is doing this, why he's showing us, is that is there a pattern between the Father and the Son? Is there a pattern between the Creator and the creation that he's trying to reveal? That he's trying to show how this will work? And does it exist? If it exists at that level, does it exist in our shadow picture human test level? Goes on, Matthew 11, 28, 30. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden. I will give you rest. Wow. The result of this, of bringing back shalom, dealing with the roots of chaos, dealing with the tahu of our lives, is going to come and bring us to a place of rest. Take my yoke. Now you know, okay, the yoke, often related to the harnessing of the animals and the workers of the laborers of the field. Well, what if this yoke, his equal yoke, it's spiritually, take my spiritual right position before the Father of knowing him upon you, if you can do this and learn from me. So is the yoke just a way of referencing it to how we harness a beast of burden? Or is this yoke actually have a greater hidden spiritual meaning? And is it actually at the root of it really what our master is referring to here? And to learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your nefesh. Directly again related to the matters of where he's wanting to take us, established back in Torah. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Is it possible that this is a spiritual matter and that the outcome of it being light is because shalom is in the picture? Have you ever noticed how things seem to just fall off when you've actually reestablished restoration with a brother, a sister, a family member, whatever it might be, and suddenly the burden of the tahu that was created in that scenario, when it comes in, how it just lifts and it leaves the very presence of your life? Has the Father established this as a pattern for us to know? I'm going to share with you just the marriage covenant that Pip and I put in place. This is our actual marriage covenant. And so I just got permission to share it here. And there, of course, she's looking very beautiful in that picture. My beautiful bride. And in my hand is this covenant. What you see there in that picture is me holding it. And we start off the covenant that I'm holding here. You'll see something interesting. Isn't this about your marriage? Isn't this about, what you want to conform, what you want? It's all about me, or I. At best, maybe us. But did that include Elohim? Do you know one of the things that in Pip and I's own covenant, what is established first and foremost is Elohim. It mirrors the covenant. We know that if we're not equally yoked at the spiritual level, what does the rest of what I'm about to show you actually have a chance at? Do you see where I'm getting at? What I'm holding in my hand, and first and foremost, is the very thing that allows us to be in this, the part that does relate to us. In our actual covenant, we are honoring Elohim from an equally yoked position, at least in the establishment of we desire to be in this place, to be equally yoked with you, Father, so that we can be equally yoked with each other. And then I start off, I desire you to always honor my father and mother. You see, if I'm established, if we are established in this place in our own marriage covenant, do you know how this is played out in our family's lives? Because I can tell you, everybody's got in-laws, right? Okay, that can be kind of a challenging thing. Did everybody agree with that? You understand that in-laws can be challenging at times? And one of the reasons why they can be challenging is because they made you in their own image and you've made them in their own image, and everybody's making everybody in their own image. And how are you supposed to have any shalom in the home based on this? And so often we see that there's real difficulties here. But what was interesting is that my wife and I, as a part of our covenant, seek to do this. to honor each other's parents, not because we've made them in their own image, not because they should be this or they should think this way or do this. They may not be of the faith. They may not be, well, who knows what's going on here? Whatever it is for me, it was honor them. And what we have sought to do in our lives, in our marriage covenant, is to do that for each other. And the shalom that has brought in through traversing some of the most difficult things that one can live in the time domain as it relates to our extended family and our father and mother in particular, that has brought in shalom into our home, because we know at the heart of our own marriage covenant, this matters. I don't get a chance to be playing games with her parents and vice versa, to be making them and conforming them in my image, to bring all that disruption into our home. It's interesting. I desire you not to hurt those I love. Well, you better get to know me, wife, husband. Who is it that I love? Oh, that doesn't conform to my image of things, so I don't love them. You love them. That's not what's being asked here. I desire you not to hurt those I love. I didn't ask you to love those I love. You may not know them the way I do. They might be friends from the past. They might be brothers and sisters you get to meet. What it's saying is that if you know me, you will know who I love. And who I love, I desire you not to hurt them. Not with your words, not with your actions, not with your deeds. Can you do that for me, bride? Can you do that for me, bridegroom? We said these things to each other under the chuppah at our covenant, during the reading of our covenant of our marriage. I desire you to have no other intimate relationships. It's with me. This doesn't mean just physical or a sexual thing. This means the intimacy of the husband, of a level of a husband and a wife. This is a place reserved for me. The intimate things that you know about me, I know about you. The things we share in this life, the things we push through together. This is not for others. This is an intimate relationship. And these are things I am trusting you with, to walk with me on, not to dishonor each other. And so there are things there in the most intimate of a relationship that if you want to understand some of those things about Pip and I, then you better get to know us at a great level. And then we will choose, just like Yeshua is saying, then I will reveal to those. You see how it works? No one has right to that place but Pip or I. And then we'll decide who else can come into that space, just as Yeshua was referring to in what we read there recorded in the Brit Hadashah. I desire you not to take from others which is not yours. Do not do this, because this is going to bring Tohu into our lives. It is going to take shalom from our home. If you do this, whatever that taking is, I desire you not to bear false witness against those I love. There's no room here for Lashon Hara or Lashon Hara. There's no room to come and bear a witness of someone perhaps I love that you're yet to know, and to do this falsely. You want to bear witness of someone, true witness of someone, get to know them. I desire you not to desire what others have, and to be content with what we have. In other words, life's going to throw a lot of things in front of us, and we may not always have what we want. We may see others have something that we want, but please don't bring this struggle into our lives. Let us journey together with Him and be content with the circumstances that are set before us. Because if we can do that, no matter what the circumstances are, Shalom can be here with us. Is it that big of a deal of how he's laid it out? Why did we have our own covenant established off of his pattern? Because as the great King David said, in the time of his great repentance, it is perfect. And we did not see to change the pattern of something that is perfect. What we sought to do was, we will fail in this. Notice the word I desire. It's not promises, empty promises, and I'll do this and I'll do that. And then, suddenly we're breaking these promises. Notice the heart of this. This is the goal. This is the desire that this would be written on our hearts. And we're going to now journey this together to get there. And we're going to start from this equally yoked position. So what is the Torah of your home? What is a practical thing that can go on? Well, I just gave you at the marriage covenant level, and I've given you a personal example as it relates to our own life. We took these patterns and principles, these greater patterns and principles of Elohim in his house, his people. And so we bring that further into the home in a practical way. So we see the practicality that I've given you for the marriage covenant. But matters of the Torah in your own home, and some of you may appreciate this, but I can't tell you, as I dealt with the body so many times, I've had to take people back to a place, and I'm seeing the miscommunications. I'm not seeing people turning to one another, knowing one another, getting to know this, and I'm seeing a confusion. And I'm going, often as a practical example, look, put this in your home. I know you think you've got this, or they may, or they, but I tell you something. Go through the exercise of writing this down. I'm going to give you an example here, of these matters of Torah in our home. So the marriage covenant, we've looked at that. But then there's the children that possibly come out of that covenant. There's the home as a reality of this as we're moving forward with all of this. And then how does this spread out to a nation, a country? If the heart of this is actually what Yahweh is doing at the heart of his people, is this the heart of actually achieving the outcome, which is shalom, this completeness, this wholeness, this ability to have this sense of tranquility and understanding our lives? And if this was the case, if we were actually doing this, could it affect the nation and a country? Is at the heart of this coming to that level? And we're going to propose, and we'll look at it a bit more next week in the hidden matters, here, his kingdom, the actual house of Israel. Is he cheating this? Is he AIing this? Or is he actually doing something that requires us to turn to one another, to know one another? Which route did he actually take to bring in this whole realm of a constant responsibility, accountability, and consequence? I think he's looking for a consequence that ends in shalom, not in tohu, not in chaos. Example of a home Torah. People say sometimes, can it be that easy and whatnot? I promise you this. You can go do this exercise, and husbands and wives don't cheat and all this sorts of things. But go away and just try and list 10 of your Levitical processes for your home, the things that help to honor each other in your home, and go away and write them separately. Would they be the same? Would they actually be the same if you were to write just what are the basic things that we need to keep this house running, functional, to practically have a place where we can keep focus on where we should and each other and others? What are all the little things that come in to steal? Why were we given all the Levitical practices? Because we needed them to get to the goal. Okay, you're not going to get it. You're going to struggle, but we need these basic instructions to help us get there. Do you see what he's done with this whole house? Well, what if we were to do that in our own homes? What if we just practically revisited this? Is it possible we're experiencing things in our own home because we're just not putting in the basic pattern and principles that Elohim has done for his whole home, for his whole house? Here's an example. as it relates. Place keys and key box. This is just an example. You might not want a key box, you need a key box. So don't, whatever this relates to you, I'm just giving you something that relates to us. But place keys and key box. I don't know if you've ever had frustrations. Anybody lost their keys before? Has anybody ever had an argument in their home? Where'd you put the keys? Things like that. Yeah. And it's very, very frustrating and things like that. But there are simple Levitical Torah practices for our home. So think of it from a high priest position or a husband position. What would I put in place to help to reach to the covenant, to honor the covenant that I've entered into? By the way, this isn't just all about somebody could be a widow, somebody could be single. These are matters of your home, whether you are in a marriage covenant or you are not. What are they? Do you even know what they are? And more importantly, are you going to be able to communicate this to others? Anybody who gets, to know someone else in their lives is going to start to understand these things, the Levitical or the high priest instructions that help to bring shalom to that particular home. So I got place keys and key box. Keep bathroom clean and tidy. I know nobody here has ever had an argument about that in their house. Again, put that in a place where it's actually given promise. Curtis, it can't be this simple. We'll go through the 600 plus Levitical instructions. Why would the Father get down to these basic, simple levels? If he's done it with his house, why can we not incorporate that pattern and principle in our lives? I promise you, doing this exercise has helped people in their home. The simplest of things. I don't tell them what it has to be. It certainly doesn't have to be what's on here on the screen. This is an example. But I promise you, for shalom in your home, when you get to know who you're living with, or if you're living on your own and you're going to bring other people into your home, you need to know what this is, because you're going to need to communicate it to them. Keep kitchen counters clean at all times. Keep bedrooms tidy and beds made. Place dirty clothes in laundry baskets. No clothes lying around. Quiet time is 9 p.m. till morning. Be respectful. Some people go to bed early, some go to bed late. Squeegee shower after use. This can be a simple example that I'm giving you. Remove shoes when in the house. Sit down for dinner every evening. Don't bring your phone. Make sure you take the dog for a pee before midnight so he doesn't wake up the rest of us and break all our shalom. These are just an example. Just 10. But I promise you, if you incorporate this with each other, and as you get to know your spouse, or whether you're with your children or whatever it is, what if the children know whatever your version is? Do they really know the Torah of your home? Or do you have to keep reminding them and they keep forgetting, or they don't care? I've literally advised people, just come up with 10. This is to help a husband and wife situation. Just come up with 10 and post them. Put them up in the most prominent place of your house so that everybody that is within your home knows how it operates, so that you don't hold or create roots of bitterness, resentment, all of these sorts of things. Because over time, the little things add up. And this is exactly why I believe you see the Levitical instructions. Because if over time, we're all kind of doing this unequally yoked thing, this can come back and actually start creating the actual matters at the heart level that cause us to be separated, that cause us. And you wouldn't think it to be this simple. But ask yourself, why did he give us the covenant and the Levitical? Why not just the covenant? Just leave it there. Why did he actually give this pattern and this principle? I challenge everybody in this community. Whether you think you know this or not, husbands, wives, go and do it. See if you come up with the same 10 things. Just 10. Do they look similar? Do you have? Because if this is shalom in your home and you truly know someone else, whether that matters to you or not, it might matter to them. There are things as a part of Pip and I's home Torah where it matters more to her, literally, than it does to me. In fact, there's some things in the Torah of our home I just don't care about, and vice versa. But you know something? The fact that she does or the fact that I do means we do. Achad. And if you think this to be so simple and practical that it doesn't matter in your life, I tell you, just try it and let the kids see it. And furthermore, let the extended family know it. Let close friends. How about visitors? If I don't know what the Torah of your home is because I'm just learning to know you, how do I know if I'm upsetting you? How do I know if I'm creating this tahu in your lives? And then I go away and then you speak a bunch of Lashon Hara about me while I visited your house or vice versa. How about we start establishing the principle and give people a chance? Give each other a chance. Give our children a chance. Give everything a chance. When are the basics being put back in place, the very practical that give us this opportunity? Do we really know what it is? What is the priority? What is the Torah of our home? We might think, oh, well, I know what it is. You might be surprised. Certainly, maybe the spouses, maybe not so much, but certainly watch the children give you that. You don't believe me, parents? Go get your kids to give it. See if it comes anywhere near you, anywhere near the wife or the husband of those children. Ask them. And you'll see how far off their Torah is. Because they're making you or wanting you to be in their own image as children. But if you want them to know what's important to mom and dad, then you really need to work on this. You need to bring the pattern and the practice in. Because I promise you, parents, do this with your kids. See what they come up with. You're going to see a disconnect. Did they really have on their heart what was important to you? Do they really know? And are you encountering all sorts of issues as a result? Now, in keeping the Torah of the home, this is not to put guilt and gain. Like I say, we've all failed in all of this. Okay. So everybody's got their examples. This isn't about taking things personally and doing all that sort of thing. This is about us just truly revisiting the basic pattern, the principles of our Elohim, and then bringing this down into our own homes and actually revisiting the things we know or think we know, and maybe getting the clarity, maybe caring that this is important to the one I love. And to actually care, it's important to them, if it's not to you, to establish these matters. So as we go through this, we're not going to get it right. We're not going to get it perfect. And of course, Elohim knew that too in the bigger picture. And so he established that the same way. Spouses, within reason, in love, is applied always. Pip and I fail from time to time in our own Torah of our home. We just whatever, lapse in the Levitical process of running our home from time to time. And both of us can be guilty of that. So how do we want to treat this with each other, knowing that that'll be the case? Well, within reason, in love is the application. Parenting, within reason and support for each other is applied. So together as parents now, the children are most certainly going to fail. So you need to support one another, not usurp one another, not to allow it to be divided at the ruling level. Children must see a united front. And a husband or a wife that you would usurp the other with their children is not in the Father's ways. And it's not how he's going to be doing the final age. I tell you, this whole thing about, oh, don't tell your father, don't tell your mother, I do that. When you do this and it actually affects the Torah of your home, you are teaching your children to usurp. They're not seeing a united front. And certainly, if you're doing it, then, well, what is this? What matters to mom and dad? Their Torah, the principles of those, what does it matter? What if Yeshua had come along, which is the accusation or the ignorance that applies on either side of the river? Oh, Yeshua was usurping the Father, or was he the sinless lamb? Which one was it? I'd suggest to you that he was sinless because of the righteous standard given in Torah. And no way did he usurp this situation so that the children would be confused. Who brought in the confusion? Is it perhaps the children making him in their own image? And now that's brought the confusion. And now we've redefined Messiah. We've redefined Elohim as a result. For the children, scripturally, consequence in love is applied. If they're not going to respect and honor the basic Torah of your home, consequence in love is applied. Just like we face the blessings and the curses as we go along. The consequence being good, or, a consequence of however that might play out. A child would most certainly think it's cursed if it loses a thing it loves for a while or whatever it might be. The very matters of discipline. This is important because, again, we are giving a whole shadow picture of the picture. And have we incorporated this in our own home, or do we just not care? Do we treat our own home in a way that we would treat our faith, the way we would treat our Messiah, the way we would treat the very essence of Elohim? Because if we can't even put these patterns, these basic patterns and principles in our own home, what are we doing on the way to your matter of faith? Family. Okay, we all know family's going to do its thing. And often extended family and whatnot, they often get things wrong when they come into our homes and do things, is because they actually don't know the Torah of our home. Sometimes it can be just not really knowing. And so there's tolerance here. To be allowed to live out a process. Don't just get zapped for instantly getting something wrong, which they may not understand how much it means to you. Reminding them, mercy is applied. They need to learn and to understand this. And if you're not communicating it, just the very basics, and you're just going, well, I'm not inviting my family over because, they always do this, and that goes against the Torah of our home. But they don't know. So they don't even know why they're being disconnected from you. You've never told them. Hello, friends. They come into your home. Do they know? Or do you just exclude them as well because they fail? Are we applying mercy? Are we doing this? Are we communicating? All of this applies, even if we don't have a spouse, even if we're not a parent. It all applies to the widow, to the single. Your home is your home, and there is a Torah. And you need to communicate this to the ones that would be in this home. Includes the sojourners. Mercy is applied. No Torah terrorists. If somebody is visiting your home, don't be a Torah terrorist on them. They may not know. Do you know there's even cultural differences? I know just from New Zealand to Canada, nobody in New Zealand really takes off their shoes when they come into the house. You try that in Canada and you're going to offend people. There's reasons for that. Actual functional reasons, especially with winter and things like that. And there's different things, but there's reasons why someone might not. And it might not be just disrespecting you. They don't know. They're sojourning. They need to understand who you are. Why would you be a certain way with them? Don't steal the shalom of your home because a visitor is failing to it. Share with them. Let them know. Maybe if your visitor walked into your house and saw just the most important 10 aspects of your Torah for your household on the wall, they might learn in 2 seconds. And who knows what shalom that might be. No usurping or lashon hara are tolerated between spouse or siblings. This is not tolerated scripturally. Do not bring it into your home. Make sure to let those close to you know the Torah of your home. Communicate. So the visitors, they're going to get a lot of mercy and things like that. But those closer to you and your extended family and your fellowship, your friends, and most certainly your children, and if you're married, your spouse, let them know. Communicate it. You've got to do this. Imagine if Yah was holding us to a righteous judgment and a standard and never gave us the Torah, never gave us the instructions around this, never gave us the blood and the mercy that covers us? What if he didn't do any of this and you just magically appeared before a great white throne judgment and then you just realize how much you failed? No chance for relationship, no chance for forgiveness, no chance to repent, none of it. Why will we not incorporate the principles that our Creator has given to us and bring this into our own lives? Why do we not think these patterns will have an absolute and direct reaction to your shalom in your home? Why have we gone off into over spiritualizing everything, trying to seek all the hidden knowledge and this and that and trying to, why can we not just bring in the basics into our lives and allow his shalom and his pattern and his principles to just readjust us, to reset us? If things intentionally not respected, apply consequence with reason for anyone in your home. If someone does know now, friends, family, visitors, whatever it is, children, and they're intentionally now not caring and showing you that disrespect, you raise it with them. You knew, brother, sister, child, because I told you and you still didn't care. Has anybody ever encountered that? Where you have shared with someone who is visiting or being with you and you let them know and they just don't care. Now there is a consequence applied to that. There is an outer darkness reality here. It is one thing to fail, to not know, to try. It is quite another to willfully go, I don't care. I don't care if this is your home. The children continually and willfully do this against the parents. I don't care, Mom. I don't care, Dad. Well, I'm sorry, children. This is not your home. This is our home. And you're in it temporarily. Well, it was supposed to be that way. Do you see how it works? It's all playing out in the shadow picture. Did we really give the example to our own children? Of course, all of this process, the reason for the Levitical pattern to be put into our own lives at the basic home level, if you will, is that it would eventually be written. The Torah of our home will be written on the hearts of others. Think about that. Think about the day when none of this, if you could truly have anyone who entered your home, your children, a spouse, a friend, a brother, a sister, if anyone who came into your home had on their heart exactly what was special to you, what mattered to you, how nice would that be in your own home? How do you think that would give you a chance for the shalom, the completeness of bringing this into your home? If everyone did. But that doesn't just magically happen, unless, of course, we go down the AI route, the programming route. And I'd suggest to you there's no room for love in that. The journey to loving others is not an easy existence. But there is a pattern for this fallen state while we're in the time domain the Father's given for his home. And I'm suggesting to you we should be establishing that same pattern and utilizing it for our own homes. Shalom actually is at the heart of these patterns, whatever they may be for you, and its principles. But we don't do these very basics because we're more interested in knowing the color of the Antichrist's underwear or something. We really need to get these things. There's going to be a greater reason and a purpose for this, especially in the days ahead, which we'll talk about next week. In Philippians 4:8-9, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, to all of these things that he has established, the words that are being given to an early kahal that is learning these things. If there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. And what's he doing? He's reminding them, what have you learned and received and heard and seen in me? In other words, the witness. What witness are we as a spouse one to another? What witness have we or are we as a mother or a father? What witness are we as a brother or sister? Witness are we as extended family? What witness are we to a visitor, to a sojourner? Now, again, I know we've all failed on every single one of those things I've mentioned. This is not a condemning place I want you to go to. It is a reminder that we can consciously put in and reestablish these patterns, be intentful, because our homes could be all over the place right now. And if we don't get back to the patterns that the Father had placed and then bring that pattern into our own lives, how do we expect it to just magically happen? Elohim didn't, but somehow we do. Look at this. Practice these things. And look at this. And the Elohim of Shalom, or in the Greek, the RNA equivalent, will be with you. Wow, he is establishing all sorts of matters for the early kahal there. Let's go read Philippians and Corinthians and all these things. What was the great apostle Paul actually doing? He was taking the pattern and the principles of the faith and bringing this into a practical level so that people could have the Elohim of Shalom with them. So, does the Torah of your home, does your marriage covenant honor him first and then each other? Does it really? It's okay to ponder and think and put these things to prayer and to discuss with one another. Not a condemning thing, just to revisit these things. Do your children know your marriage covenant and the Torah of your home? I can tell you how that is failed at an unbelievable level in the believing body. Very few children would know the marriage covenant of their mom and dad. They're not even shared to them. What mattered to them? The children don't have a clue. They were never taught. The parents were never taught. Let the children know what it was that mom and dad thought was so important. Incredible. And how about the established Torah of your own home? Clearly there. And if they have to see it on the door of their bedroom every day or up in the kitchen, or I don't care if you want to etch it in a piece of wood and put it as the centerpiece of your living room, it must be known. These things must be known if we're going to get shalom. Do your close and wider family really know your marriage covenant? Do they? Do they know what was truly important to you? This is your wider extended family. Could even be mom and dad, your brothers, your sisters, your aunties, your uncles, and as we extend out, do they actually know what is important to you? And do they know what matters in your own home? And has it ever been truly communicated, or do they just fail and then we talk about them behind their backs? Do your close friends know your marriage covenant and the Torah of your home? So as you reveal yourself to them, as they get to know you, do they know? It's all going to equip them. And it's all going to bring shalom into your life and into your home. Are the visitors to your home made aware of your home Torah? They don't necessarily going to get the marriage covenant stuff unless those visitors turn into close, more intimate relationships. But do they know the basics when they get there? Or do we just judge people for failing according to our standard without them even knowing? What about shalom for his house? And we're now going to look at this more in the final part of this series. What is really going on here? It's an interesting thing here recorded in Micah, and you see the great repentance that had to take place when the prophet Micah, and what the judgments and the things that were going on here. But there's an interesting place where this is going to flow to. And it shall come to pass in the latter days. So in the last days of the great plan of redemption. So there's direct reference here to not only us, but also to the last day in this great plan of redemption, that the mountain of the house of Yah shall be established as the highest of the mountains. Think of mountain there as interpretation government. In the last days, the government of the house of Yah, the ruling, the right ruling of the house of Yah shall be established as the highest of the governments. And it shall be lifted up above the hills, and the peoples shall flow to it. So you mean he's going to take this whole pattern and he's going to carry this out in the last great day, the last part of his plan of redemption? And it's starting now with our witness, our examples, our homes. He's going to now do this for the earth. And many nations shall come. So the governments of those nations shall come to the government and say, come, let us go up to the government, the right ruling of Yah, to the house of Elohim of Yaakov, that he may teach us his ways and that we may walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the Torah and the word of Yah from Jerusalem. He's going to finish his great plan of redemption with these same principles as a part of raising his eternal family and completing the house of Israel. That Shalom, this place, will come in and will engulf eternity and not Tahu, and not the chaos that we see at the beginning of the Torah and Bereshit. So what was on the ancient Tav? The definition of Shalom includes these things at the heart of the Hebrew: completeness, welfare, health, safety, soundness, prosperity, tranquility, contentment, strong relationships, no conflict, covenant relationship with Elohim. These are the definition, or this is the meaning or the essence of Shalom. What really happened on the ancient Tav, and where is this really all going? Okay, let's finish there for part 2, and we'll come back here shortly for the Q&A.